In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace your front brake hose on your Honda CR-V. It's located behind your front wheel. Using a 19mm socket, we're going to remove our wheel. And for the last one, make sure you keep a hand on it, where it doesn't fall off. All right, anytime you're doing any sort of hydraulics work on your vehicle, you're going to want to press the brake pedal down and hold it with like a pry bar or a pole of some sort. That'll ensure that you don't lose a ton of fluid and just makes your life a little easier. It's less messy. All right, now that we have our pry bar pressing our brake pedal down, we're going to disconnect our brake line from the hose using a 10mm line wrench. And loosen it up. All right, so after you disconnect your fitting, we're going to take out this steel clip. I'm going to use some needle nose pliers and slide them in there. And pull it out. Be gentle with that line. Make sure you don't bend it too much. All right, so now we're going to disconnect our bolt. All right, using a 12mm socket, we're going to loosen up our bolt bracket. We're going to loosen up our bolt for the bracket for the hose. All right, so our brake hose bracket is a little stuck, so I'm going to pry it away as I unscrew it. If this happens to you, this is a good way to get it out. Otherwise, it's just a bolt and it should just unscrew. Using a 14mm socket, we're going to take this bolt out for the brake hose. Make sure you have a drip pan below, but because you have your brake pedal pressed down, it shouldn't leak too much. So now we can separate this hose from the caliper and take it out. Just make sure your washers aren't on the caliper because you're going to be replacing those. All right, so make sure you take off this washer. Even if it looks like it's part of the bolt, it's not. If you need to, you got to use a pick to take off that washer. Then you're going to replace it with a new one. So let's set that off to the side. I'm going to clean off the area. And insert your hose. You can thread your fitting into the hose at this point. Make sure your hose is inside the bracket the way it goes. There's a little flat spot that it fits into. And then you can finish tightening up your line. You can put your spring clip in, lock it in. So I'm just using a flathead screwdriver to steer it and use a small hammer to get it in there. And just make sure your hose is secure. From this point, we can start attaching our hose to its bracket and to the caliper. I'm going to put my washer on my caliper and then my brake hose and then my washer on my bolt. And then I'm gonna put my bolt in. Make sure that your brake hose is between these 2 points on the caliper, and that'll hold it stable. We're gonna snug that up and then torque it to 25 foot-pounds. Our bracket is all stripped, so I'm going to use a bolt and a nut to replace it. So we're going to tighten up our bolt and nut. You can tighten up just your bolt if it's not stripped. You want to do snug and then go another 1/4 of a turn to keep it from moving around. All right, so now we can take our pry bar out and release our brake pedal. All right, so now we're going to gravity bleed the front brake. So loosen up your bleeder and just wait. You're looking for air bubbles and then eventually just a pretty steady drip or stream of brake fluid. Looks good, so now I'm going to close it down. Now you're going to clean off the area. Test your brake pedal, make sure it's not spongy and it's at the top and hard. If it is, you're good to go. If you're not, you're going to have to do a full brake bleed procedure. We're going to reinstall our wheel. Start our lug nuts by hand. Turn my wheel down. And we're going to snug them up in a star-like pattern. We're going to torque our lug nuts to 80 foot-pounds. You're going to do that in a star-like pattern. Then I always like to double check and I go around one more time. All right, so you're gonna clean and inspect your cap on your master cylinder first. You're gonna check to see what kind of fluid it takes. This says .3 or 4 brake fluid. If yours does not say anything, you're going to use what's recommended by the manufacturer. Now we're going to see if there's a filter in here, which there is. You're going to take it out. You can put that right in your pan. Now we're going to siphon out our old brake fluid using a tool like this or something similar. Make sure your pan is nearby. You should clean and inspect your strainer and put it back. Now we're gonna pour in clean brake fluid. So you're just gonna fill your master cylinder till it's to the max with your clean brake fluid. The max line is on this part of the cap. Now we can put our cap back on. And now we're ready to bleed our brakes. The brake bleed procedure is left front, right rear, left rear. All right, so we're gonna take our rubber cap off our caliper bleeder. I have somebody inside the vehicle that's ready to pump the brakes for me. Can you pump it up, please? All right. Crack open the bleeder with a 10mm. Get to the floor, pump it up again, please. Holding. Pump it up again, please. All right. Take this off. Clean it off a little. Let that dry. And then put the cap back on. Now we're going to go to the right front. All right, now that we've bled the front two brakes, we're going to check our master cylinder and top it off before we do the rears. All right, now we can put our cap back on and continue our bleed procedure. All right, now that you've checked your fluid level, we're going to the right rear. Pump it up. To the floor. Pump it up, please. Please, holding. To the floor. Pump it up one more time, please. He's holding. Looking good. Tighten that down. Clean it off. And I'm going to have to replace that rubber cap because there isn't one. And now we're going to our left rear. All right, now that we're done bleeding the brakes, we're going to top off our fluids again. Remove the cap. And we're going to fill this up to max. Put your cap back on. And then we're gonna clean it off with some brake clean. Now we can get in our vehicle. We're gonna check our brake pedal, make sure it's nice and high and hard. If it doesn't feel good and it feels like squishy, you're gonna have to bleed the brakes one more time because that means there's probably a problem or there's air in the system. If your brakes feel great, you're good to go. You can go for a road test.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.